Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this interview with Jen Kamel, founder of VBACfacts.com. My name is Ioli Orfanidi. I'm a member of Birth Forward Cyprus, the first organization in Cyprus that deals with the whole spectrum of parenting, from preconception to pregnancy to birth and early parenting. I'm very excited to host this interview today, as I believe we have a lot to learn from Jen Kamel, founder of the website VBACfacts.com. Cyprus has the highest cesarean section rates in the world right now, with an overall of 56.9%. Unfortunately, VBAC, which is the acronym for vaginal birth after cesarean, are performed rarely in Cyprus. Birth Forward is trying to raise awareness for this subject through our April Cesarean Awareness campaign and our infographics, as well as through this series of interviews with experts in their fields. Now, we hope that our president, Dr. Elena Pedersen, will also be joining this interview at some point. But right now, I would like to welcome Jen, give her a warm welcome for this online interview. Jen, could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your website, VBACfacts.com?
Sure. So my journey to this place right this moment began back in 2004 when I had a cesarean for footling breech. My baby had 1 foot down and 1 foot up. And after I had my C-section, which I really was not excited about, my OB told me I'd be a great candidate for VBAC. But I quickly came to learn how difficult it was for parents to find good evidence and for professionals to stay on top of the evidence. And so I founded VBAC Facts, which is an educational consulting and training firm.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a background in medical, in medicine, or is it just your interest as a parent that led you towards this?
It really was my interest as a parent. My background is in commercial real estate, and I just started digging into the literature for my own purposes because I wanted answers to questions that I couldn't easily find online. And it was a very long learning curve. You know, you don't just like find a piece of medical research and dive in and it all makes sense initially. So it's a huge learning curve, but I was able to collect information that was great for myself, and I found that there were a lot of other parents and professionals who were also interested in this level of information. And so that's when I started creating courses and doing consulting work throughout the United States, and also making my programs available online so people around the world can access the facts.
Yes, this is a huge inspiration for all parents out there, and I'm sure everyone has a lot to benefit from visiting your website. So I'd like to ask your opinion on why you think cesarean section rates have increased in the past few years all over the modern and developed world. I mean, I know the situation in the US has been quite stable in the past few years. I think you have a C-section rate of around 33%, if I'm correct.
Yes.
However, in Cyprus, we've steadily seen numbers skyrocket. We've now reached 56.9%. So why do you think that is?
Well, there could be a lot of different factors going into that. Everything from how individual labors are managed. So telling a woman that if you don't an hour, 1 centimeter per hour, you'll have a C-section, or telling women if you don't go into labor by 40 weeks, you'll have a C-section. And then you also have women who, for a variety of reasons, opt for an elective cesarean.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that happens? Why would women opt for an elective cesarean instead of a natural birth?
Well, I think there's a lot of different factors that play into that. The perception of risk, the understanding of your options, the fear of messing up your vagina, the fear of labor. And then some women are sexual abuse survivors, and depending on how they have processed that experience, having an elective cesarean or an unmedicated vaginal birth is the most healing choice for them. I mean, I've heard both from survivors that the idea of being in surgery and being disconnected with their body was really triggering for them. Whereas for other survivors, they didn't want any sensation around the genital area during childbirth. And so for them, a repeat cesarean or a primary cesarean is the way that they are able to be survivors and cope with having children. So there's a lot of different reasons that go into that.
Yes, there is no recipe for anyone who's been a survivor from sexual abuse. Yes, I agree with you. There are a lot of reasons for elective cesareans. So, okay, let's say you meet a mother who has had a first cesarean and is now pregnant again. Why would anyone choose to have a VBAC instead of an elective cesarean?
Well, there's a
repeat cesarean.
Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons. There's medical reasons. There's also personal reasons. Medical reasons would include a lower risk of hysterectomy, a lower risk of bleeding issues, lower risk in terms of all of her future births. Because when you have a repeat C-section, for every single C-section you have, it increases the likelihood that you'll have a hysterectomy, excessive bleeding, or placental abnormalities, which are the most serious complication that can come from cesarean sections. And those risks increase with each subsequent pregnancy and each subsequent cesarean. And so for women who choose to have a VBAC, they're able to circumvent those risks. Now with VBAC, you do have the risk of uterine rupture, and that is one of the cons of VBAC. And so this really comes down to understanding the risks and benefits of your options and just deciding what's right for you. And unfortunately, what a lot of people try to say is, this is what's right for everyone. And I really don't believe that. I think the power of being able to choose a VBAC is the exact same power that enables a woman to choose an elective repeat cesarean section. And in the end, she is the one who needs to be able to say, this is what I want for my body.
Yeah, as long as they have the full information, as long as they make a really informed choice, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ideal situation.
But what is the situation like usually?
Well, usually women are pregnant after cesarean and they go to their doctor and their doctor says, congratulations, when do you want to schedule your cesarean? We can do it at 39 weeks, we can do it at 40 weeks. And if they inquire about VBAC, they say, oh, no one does that anymore. And people, obviously, they trust their providers and they want what's best for their baby. And so, of course, they're going to choose the route of delivery that their provider suggests. And it is astonishing to me that I've been doing this work now for almost 10 years. And we had a big conference in America about 10 years ago. Our National Institutes of Health had a huge conference on VBAC. It was 3 days long. And as a result of all the evidence shared, the American College of OBGYNs revised their VBAC guidelines, really encouraging women to have access to VBAC. And that was 10 years ago. And I still encounter women who are told, oh, when do you want to schedule your C-section? The option is not even presented to them. And so they don't even realize that there's a choice. They don't even realize there's another way. And so that's what VBAC Facts is all about, is letting people know that there is an option.
Yes, that's amazing. So how can women feel more empowered in their journey towards VBAC? I mean, what factors contribute towards a successful VBAC, towards a woman feeling empowered in her attempt for a VBAC? In your opinion?
Yeah, well, consistently across the board, I find that women who are most satisfied with their birth experience are women who feel respected and heard during that process. So whether they're planning a VBAC or whether they're planning a repeat cesarean, feeling like their voice is heard through this process, rather than just being told, this is what's going to happen to you now, this is what's going to happen to you now. You know, it's not like getting your teeth cleaned. You know, it's an incredibly intimate, transformational moment, regardless of how you give birth. And so finding the right information, finding good, accurate information, finding a supportive provider, I think social support are the 3 factors to planning a successful VBAC. Right. And also keep in mind that you can have everything lined up. You can do everything, quote, right. And the wind cannot blow your way that day, and luck has a big play in birth. And sometimes things happen and it's not your fault, parent. It's not your fault, professional. Sometimes things just happen. And so it's really important to be gentle with ourselves when we are the person that happens to, because this is an area that you can only control so much. You can only plan so much. I'm totally type A. Believe me, I'd love to schedule the whole thing out, but there is that element of luck. And so you always have to be aware of that and just be flexible as your labor unfolds, because that's just the way it rolls.
Yeah, I think it's important for women to understand that when they're making a birth plan, for example, about their VBAC, it's important for them to also have a backup birth plan in case they have an emergency cesarean. It
yes.
probably helps them prepare mentally for any case that you mentioned, you know, the factors like luck that you cannot control.
Yeah.
You mentioned a supportive provider. Now, what is it that makes a supportive provider? What are some questions that parents can ask providers to realize if they are truly supportive of VBACs and of their choices?
Yeah, well, I find open-ended questions are really the best. You just want them to start talking. So you go in and you say, hey, I had a C-section 3 years ago, and again, what's your stance on VBAC? And just let them talk and see what they say. And you can tell a lot from the words coming out of their mouth as well as their body language. Do those two things line up? Do they say, oh yeah, I'm supportive, but their body language is very much like, So, and then you can also ask them, of the last 10 people who came to you to have a VBAC, how many actually had one? You know, if it's 7, 8, 9, that's good. That's good. If they're telling you 3 out of 10, there's some sort of mismatch there. Now, maybe, you know, those other women had a cord prolapse or a shoulder dystocia or some other condition that required an emergency cesarean. But generally, you want about 60 to 80% of the women in their practice ending up with a VBAC. So if you say, of the last 10 women had a VBAC, wanted a VBAC with you, how many attained one? And they say 3, a red flag should be flying around in your face. And I actually have a whole list of questions over at vbacfacts.com/questions. I have about 15 questions up there, and a lot of them are open-ended questions for them to just get talking, and you can get a real feel for where they stand.
Yes. Excellent. So I know that you've been advocating a lot on removing VBAC bans from hospitals in the US. In Cyprus, this is really not an issue because there's no hospital policies. It's just what the doctor says. So when you go to the doctor, you might say, I want a VBAC. They'll say, forget about it. We don't do that. And there's no convincing an individual doctor, let alone hospital policies. But in your experience, if you would like to share your experience on how people in the US have managed to raise VBAC bans, and how is this achievable?
Well, it's a multi-stepped process. I mean, really first, you yourself, the advocate who wants to change policy, needs to become educated on the actual medical evidence of VBAC, as well as the political arena in which VBAC operates. And that includes also understanding national guidelines, how hospitals interpret those guidelines. So that way, when you go in and have a conversation, you actually can speak from a place of knowledge. Because as in any topic, if you don't have a good foundation, it's very easy for other people to talk circles around you. Much like when I go get my car fixed and I know nothing about cars, they could tell me anything. I have no idea, right? So if you're gonna go in and advocate, you need to first become educated on the subject. And then the second thing is build allies within the hospital. Reach out to those in the hospital and see who is supportive of VBAC, who is willing to work with you and give you an internal lay of the land. Then you need to assemble your allies in the community. Find others, professionals, and really this is an issue that touches any birthing women and those who love women. So it's really an issue that influences everyone. And so get them together and be ready to coordinate either letter writing campaigns or engage the media. There's a lot of different factors, a lot of different ways that you can go around changing policy. But the foundation of it is knowing the evidence, illustrating demand, and then applying consistent pressure until change is made.
Yes, it's true. Collective work is what will make the world go round, what will make changes come forth. So on a political level, for example, like laws or political regulations, do you think that there's anything that can be done for the situation to change?
You know, that's a tough situation. I mean, a legislative answer that might be something that could help, but I don't know. I mean, I really think consumer pressure and being able to change hospital policy from the bottom up. In the United States, you know, a lot of people are afraid of lawsuits, and if we had a good case of someone who was denied a VBAC through a VBAC ban and then had a really bad outcome and then she sued, you know, that seems to be a way that Americans respond to. But unfortunately, that means you have to wait until some woman is injured or dies as a result of some issue with the VBAC ban, and then tying that damage back to the VBAC ban. So there's a variety of attorneys throughout the United States that's looking for cases like this and is fighting for women to have access to VBAC. And so if anyone knows of a good case, send me an email at jen.kamel@vbacfacts.com.
Okay. Okay, so I think that's more or less the time we had. I would just like to have you invite people to look over your page, see your courses. You can say everything better about that. So.
Well, if you go to VBAC Facts, that's okay. If you go to VBACfacts.com, there's a variety of free reports and articles on VBAC. But if you are ready to just dive deep and get the facts and have it delivered to you in the peace of your home at your own schedule, then I have courses online for professionals and providers. And if you go to VBACfacts.com and click on the word courses at the top, you're right there. You can also go to academy.vbacfacts.com.
That's amazing, Jen. I really hope that change will come forward, and it seems like you're one of the cornerstones of this change in the U.S. right now. So
thank you.
We're also hoping to see a few changes here in Cyprus, well, in a few years at least. We've started our campaign. We're starting our campaign these days in April. So again, a very warm thank you for attending this interview that we've been trying to arrange for 3 months now. And just all the best to whatever it is that you are planning to continue with.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.